Hey there, welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking all the things, or at least most of the things, that I wish I knew about living in Ireland before I moved to Ireland. If you're new, my name is Claire Hawkins. I'm a singer-songwriter and travel vlogger. I'm originally from New York City, but for the past year and a half-ish, I've been living in Dublin, Ireland.
I'm working on my foreign voice.
My family's originally from Ireland, and I know that's like a cliche American thing to say, like my great-great-great-great cousins, but my grandmother was actually born in Dublin, so I do have a bit of the Irish culture in my family. Despite that, when I moved here, there was so much that I didn't know, so I thought that I'd share a little 18 months of living in Dublin, Ireland wisdom with you. I've split up my list into 5 categories, and the first one is moving over here. I was super lucky because I have family here that I, for the first year of living here, actually just lived with my cousins. I knew I was super fortunate because my cousins are fantastic and I got to spend a lot of time with them, which was wonderful, but I didn't know before I moved here that part of the reason I was so lucky to have that was because there's actually a pretty serious housing crisis in Dublin. I don't know about the rest of the country, but I can definitely speak to Dublin. There's not a lot of affordable housing. That is one thing that may have changed a good bit with the pandemic situation. But if you're moving here, I highly suggest coming here first in a temporary accommodation, like an Airbnb, or I have some friends that stayed in hostels for the first couple weeks they were here, and then you have time to actually look at what the options are, because I've heard stories of scammers, and Facebook groups can be really great, but they can also be really dangerous. So especially if you're moving here on your own and you don't know anybody and you don't know the housing situation, come here first, walk around, get to know the neighborhoods, and then commit to a place where you live. Another very important thing in the category of moving over here is jobs. When I moved here, I was a recent college grad, so I had worked a ton of music industry internships and entertainment industry things, but I hadn't really done like the typical, barista or bartender, that kind of thing. So I had the incorrect impression of, oh, anybody can get a job in a coffee shop. Not true, actually. Every coffee shop that I inquired with asked me if I had ever had a job as a barista before. I had to say no, and then they said, no thank you. I ended up working at a music venue because my background was all in music, go figure. It was super fun, I loved working there, but yeah, the coffee shop route was not an option for me. I won't talk about this for too long because I could go on forever complaining, but number 2 is weather. I guess I kind of knew that Ireland was pretty rainy. I think that's kind of known, but there's also a severe lack of blue skies that sometimes gets to me, especially in winter. But when there is a blue sky, it's glorious, and I do think that Ireland blue skies are quality over quantity, so that's the optimistic view. The other thing that I was kind of surprised about when I first moved here is how mild the summers are. Now, I'm from New York City, so I'm used to an extreme winter and extreme summer, but in Ireland, it never gets super cold. Okay, it gets cold, but not like blizzard. I kind of knew that, but I was surprised that it also doesn't get very hot in the summer. It's still nice in the summer, but in New York, I would never wear long pants in the summer because it's just too hot, whereas here I was wearing jeans the whole summer. Not a big deal, but just a thing that I could have packed my clothing a little better had I known that. The next category is maybe my favorite, and it is travel. I've only lived in Dublin, so it's possible that my point of view is a bit skewed here. But I will say that generally, travel throughout the country is pretty Dublin-centric. What I mean by that is, obviously if you're driving, you can drive wherever. I don't drive because I grew up in New York City and just never did that. But if you are driving, left side of the road, don't forget that. When I was traveling through Ireland, I was taking buses and I was taking trains. It wasn't really a big deal because you can pretty much get a bus or train to any other part of the country from Dublin. It's tricky if you're coming from another non-Dublin part of the country to go to another non-Dublin part of the country. When I was on my tour and performing shows around Ireland, it wasn't really easy or doable to go spot to spot to spot around the country. It was a lot of, okay, I'm in Dublin now, this weekend we're going here, and then I'm back in Dublin, and then this weekend we're going here. My friend who was living in Killarney, she wanted to meet me in Kilkenny, which is sort of halfway between Killarney and Dublin. The thing is, there was no transportation that went from Killarney to Kilkenny without stopping in Dublin. If this is Killarney, this is Kilkenny, this is Dublin. So she had to go like this and then back. Oh, and another thing. I think this might actually be obvious, but I remember being very worried when I was on the bus to Northern Ireland. I was going to Belfast for my EP release show and I forgot my passport. But it doesn't matter because it's a soft border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. You don't need a passport. It's hard to even tell that you've crossed over into a different country, except that the currency is different. This next category is a bit of a fun one and a bit of a memory because it's been a good year since we've been able to have nightlife. I'm very aware that my perspective on Irish nightlife is influenced by the fact that I'm from New York City. So my perception of what is like normal hours and everything is probably actually not normal for a lot of the rest of the world. So with that said, one thing that kind of surprised me, and I really think it's just because I'm used to New York where you can get anything at any hour of the night, but in Ireland, alcohol is not allowed to be sold after 10 p.m. Obviously, in the pubs you can still get pints and all that, but if you're just buying like liquor or even a bottle of wine, anything like that from an off license, which is a liquor store, you can't after 10 p.m. It was kind of surprising to me. But then I learned that other parts of the world also have similar things. So I've just been living in a New York City bubble. Kind of on that note, I was also really surprised by how early pubs close. I think on weeknights they close as early as like 11 or 12, and then even on weekends the like late nights are 2 a.m.-ish, and after that you have to go to a club if you want to stay out. Another thing on that was that what is considered a club in Ireland is what I think of as like a dancey bar. But this is probably skewed by the fact that I used to live in Berlin and clubbing there is just very, very different. Also on this everything closes early kind of thing, my New York City upbringing has me very spoiled that I'm used to 24-hour transportation any day of the week. That is not the case in Ireland. It's not the case in most of the rest of the world, so I'm actually just the weird one here. I think typically buses would stop around 11:30, maybe a little before, but then if it's a Friday or Saturday there are some night buses, but they only run like once an hour. You're gonna have to look up the schedules because it depends what line you're on and also whether or not there's a pandemic going on. You'll see, just Google that one. The last thing that I wanted to cover in this is a bit funny. It's slang. I'm not gonna do that thing of, oh, crack doesn't really mean crack. I'm pretty sure you guys already know that one. I'm not even gonna list out all the different slang words that I've learned here, but I will say I was surprised that I actually have had some language barrier moments while living here. I think my favorite example was one time at work, because of course it had to happen at work. I was talking about a coworker giving me a ride home, you know, like carpooling. Except in Ireland, if you say someone gave you a ride, just say lift. Just say they gave me a lift. That's, yep, just do that. Or here's one that I really didn't think would be a problem. The 8th letter of the alphabet, Americans pronounce as H. And then Irish people, and I think also a lot of people in the UK, pronounce it H. You wouldn't think that would be a problem, but I had moments where I had to spell something and the person I was talking to didn't understand what I was saying. Here's another one. The pronunciation of the name of the country. I don't say it right. Most Americans pronounce it Ireland. Ireland. 3 syllables. That's wrong. I can't really do a good demonstration of how you say it, but it's like Ireland. How'd I do? The last thing that I'll leave you with is the language here. Because obviously everyone speaks English, but you also have to learn Irish in schools. It's Irish. It's not Gaelic. Don't say Gaelic. It's called Irish. It is the law that all official signs and documents have to be translated into both Irish and English. The thing about Irish is that it's not pronounced how it looks. Really, ever. So if you want to save yourself a little embarrassment, maybe look up a town's name pronunciation before you say it out loud to your family members who will rightfully tease you. That is it. Those are the things that I wish I knew before I moved to Ireland. Frankly, I'm still learning new things all the time while living here, so maybe I'll make a part 2 at some point. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do. It's been so awesome to see this little community of people who care about music and travel following the channel, so thank you so much. And please, please leave me a comment. It's my favorite thing when I get to hear from you all and see where in the world you are I know I have a couple Irish viewers out there, so if I got anything totally wrong, feel free to kindly tell me that. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.
I'm working on my foreign